President Zelensky has travelled to America, leaving Ukraine for the first time since the war began. With war deaths back home estimated to be in the tens of thousands, he's shoring up support and after more weapons.
Россиян и будь-каких других врагов нужно убивать. Только убивать. И не бояться, самое главное, этого делать.
The Economist's Russia and Eastern Europe editor, Arkady Ostrovsky, secured interviews with President Zelensky.
Добрий день. Добрий день, пане президент.
General Zaluzhny, and Commander Syrskyi, three of Ukraine's most senior officials. Together with our defense editor Shashank Joshi, he discusses what their revelations tell us about the next stages of the war.
The message is very clear. The war is not going to stop until Ukraine gets to the borders of 1991. Freezing the lines now would be very dangerous.
On the east, it's like in World War II, during very difficult battles. It's really war with fire, with shelters, with rockets, with everything, artillery, so with everything. And in Kiev, you see not so dangerous, but they begin to use rockets.
Since Russia started this barrage, basically 50% of power generation of Ukraine has been lost. There is darkness in every sense of the word. This is not a movie, this is the real life, and we should not underestimate the amount of strain, psychological strain people are under.
These blackouts are due to attacks on power grids, including by Iranian-made drones.
They're not very good, but they don't have to be good. They only have to be good enough to hit the right things in sufficient numbers. And Russia is now potentially indigenizing the production of those systems. That's going to be a big problem for Ukraine. However, the really big problem would be if Iran makes a decision to supply short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles, things like the Zulfikar system. If it were to do that, it would essentially allow Russia to keep up this rate of relentless attack on Ukraine's cities and infrastructure.
Valery Zaluzhny is certain that Russians are already rebuilding somewhere behind the Urals, both in munition and manpower, and they are preparing for a fresh offensive. And he said this could come possibly as soon as end of January, possibly in March, if they're lucky, and most likely in February. He was talking about some 200,000 Russian troops, and he's fearing attack or counteroffensive in several directions. In the south, in the east, he said the Russians could go again and threaten Odessa and Nikolaev, and as well as in the direction of Belarus and Kyiv.
Vladimir Putin visited Belarus on December 19th, and there's been heightened military activity there.
There is a sense that an attack could come from the north. Now, what we have been told is that Belarus has probably given away too much of its supplies, ammunition and other material, to the Russians to conduct an attack itself or to take part in one. And I am skeptical that we would see a serious attempt from the north. And if you're looking at this from the perspective of Vladimir Putin, who says, what do I want to take most of all? The bit that he doesn't have is the rest of Donetsk province. And taking that would allow him to say he has liberated or captured the entirety of Donbass. And if you were a Ukrainian commander assessing your options, the really ambitious place for a Ukrainian offensive would be Melitopol, because they would be able to get their HIMARS rocket launchers within range of Russian supply lines all the way from Russian territory to Crimea. But of course, we have to remember, for the Ukrainians, it isn't just territory.
More than 95 or 96% of people want to deoccupy all their territory after Russian did it. I think the big mistake was on 2014, but the biggest mistake, the tragedy was on 24th of February, because that is the point when nobody wants to come back to any compromises.
In no conversations did I get a sense that they're unrealistic and they're gang-ho and they want to go and march into Crimea. I think Zelensky is now talking about we can completely see sort of the return of Crimea by non-military means. And I think what he means by that is if Putin is defeated, if there is a change of regime, the status Crimea will be completely renegotiated.
With months, possibly years of grueling conflict ahead, President Zelensky continues to stand not just against Putin, but for what he believes is life's most fundamental principle.
Save your love. Save your love. Your love is your neighbors, your relatives, your parents, your children, your nation. That is what we love.
After 10 months of the war, you have love and not hate?
I have love. And I have hate. I told you to whom I have.
To read more of our coverage on the war in Ukraine and the events in Russia, please click on the link. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.